season 8, episode 40, number 347. Summer school still. And we have, if we're both available next Saturday, that will be, I imagine, our last summer school episode for season 8. I'm kind of digging jumping into season 9.
Mm,
I like
I got
the
it. I
I like
got.
the idea of it.
I do too. I feel like there's. I feel like. Um, Sorry, I'm gonna pull emotions out of this. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go direct action here. I know. I know for sure that I will have a ton of shit to talk about this year. I know. I already know. I already know. I got stuff popping up in my head that I know when I actually put it into motion, it's going to create, it's going to give me, and I'll say specifically from a, well, I can do a couple different realms. Life, I got a lot of stuff cracking off that I know I set September as a starting point for the, like the timer's going to kick in creatively, like stuff that's going on for me, just stuff, theater, creative stuff, work stuff. Um, I'm already having, I'm already having, uh, practice conversations about moments that I know are going to pop up as a result of me no longer being in a community classroom. I know it. I know that me being in Gen Pop in a school can be a can be a catalytic uh, can be a catalytic um, spawn point of stuff happening. Being me making these decisions inside my little classroom in the past and sort of just stepping out to kind of get some mentorship and coming back and developing it, like I had a red hot incubator of a classroom, like the stuff that I was doing in there with the kids that I was working with. So now me, what does that look like when I transition out and I'm going back to teaching learning strategies again? I'm mobile around the school. I'm going to be in teachers classrooms. So me, the diffusion factor of what I was doing in this small room. Um, I don't know if I said to you, I used this example the other day. It keeps popping up in my head. Did you ever watch Doctor Who? Ever? Oh, are you
I
frozen?
have,
No, you're
yes.
okay. So his mode of transportation is something called the TARDIS, which is it's an acronym for something. But it's basically a police box. On the outside, it looks like an old British kind of like blue police box, which really just is like, I think in there, classically, there's a phone so that they can call the office if they need support. But you go inside of it and it's infinitely large inside. So the outside doesn't match what's going on the inside. And we can do a whole bunch of metaphors with that if you want. But that's where I will be looking to sort of like in almost origami style unfold everything that I've been building inside this classroom and try and lay it out in the school. And even asking Karen a few questions the other day about like, because I actually don't have a perspective on some of this stuff, like the way that stuff runs out there in the regular world in the school. Because I have some, like one of the questions I asked them, like, is there any rules right now about having to be in a specific department office? She's sort of looking at me like, yeah, I don't like the office that the spec ed department's in. This is a familiar conversation that you and I have had. I said, I don't like it. It's too loud. It's too loud. There's too many kids coming in and out. Plus, it's a social hub. This next year, I need to be able to get all my shit done when I'm at work. I have to. Like, I have to. I don't, I think for my wellness and for my efficacy, I have to, I have to make sure that my work time when I'm at school, that's my optimized time. Not me ever saying to myself, well, I can just do this on the weekend. Never, 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 never. Or say, well, I can just do this at another time during the day. Or for me to even say things like, well, the GPS conversation that you and I had, where I say to myself, you know what, I'm gonna go in early to work to get some stuff done, and I need to be there early to avoid distraction. I don't want to say that this year. I want to arrive in good time for work to be able to go to my classroom and be prepared to sort of work through what the day is going to sort of give to me. And I will say last year, because I had that dedicated classroom, if I said I'm going to go in a little bit early, the trade-off would be I couldn't bring my children with me, or they would have to get up like unreasonably early to come with me. I'm there to do work, but then they're sitting roaming the halls. So there's like this interconnectivity of me trying to live better while I'm at work. So even so my family's better. But back where do I go? I started here. This is going to create some ripples at the school. This is going to create some ripples. The way that I operate when I'm around people is sometimes noticed and people like to push back on it. But I'm high percentage of times I know what I'm doing is fine. It's legal. Like it's within the the parameters of the job. I'm built different when I'm at work. Now people are going to notice because they haven't really noticed me yet. Because I remember I arrived at this place and went right into a community classroom. So anybody that ever connected with me and came into the classroom, they're like, "Oh wow, this is cool what you're doing here. I didn't even know." I used to love it when people said that. I didn't even know. So now that I didn't even know factor, people are going to get to know me. We'll see how that rolls out. And I don't need everybody to know me and know me well, but they're going to start to know me and notice me how I work. That'll be at least 3 episodes when we meet up.
So I like. Am I still coming in okay?
There's some lag, but I don't know if that's on my end or your end.
No, I think it's on my end because it shows me low internet connectivity, which is absolutely ridiculous since I'm hardwired into this thing.
Mhm. I don't know.
I
I
just
think
heard the lag. It's unbelievable.
your audio your audio, and this is what can happen. I mean, the audio seems to be responsive. Like you seem to be talking when I finish talking. When I'm watching your video, it seems to be a little bit. It's not as crisp. Does mine look okay from your end?
You're good.
Thumbs up.
You're good.
Thumbs up. So it looked like there might even be a couple, like at least a 1 second. It's funny when you do this long enough, you notice lag, right? Like any small little bit, you notice the lag. So I'm thinking there's probably about a 1 second lag here. Did you want to log out, log back in again? And I can just blather on for a second. It's up to you, man. I don't if you
If
do
I
it
do
may.
that, is it gonna
Oh shit! Right. Will that shut it down? Will it shut it down? That's
I
interesting.
don't know. I won't end the stream. I'll just walk out and walk back in.
You try what you got to try. Yeah. You see what happens. Oh, the Leave Studio. Geez,
Okay,
I don't
well,
know.
it, yeah, leave studio. Should I try it?
Try it. Why not? We'll just log back in again. Let's see. Let's see if it does. If it doesn't, then we'll just go on from there. It's good to
Okay,
know. Give it a try.
here I go.
Okay. I'll keep talking. Let's see what happens. Okay. So I can see you still clicking. Well,
It won't even let me leave.
I was looking up at the time key at the top left. I can see, well, it's still going. It's still saying live. Oh, we got a comment. Everything looks and sounds good from here. Gary, drop me a comment in here. Are we still, is the feed still there? And I'll give you a good morning. Oops, let's do good morning, Gary. Good morning, Gary. There we go. I can see that did not go in as fast as it should. So we'll see how that looks. See if Chids comes back in, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the next season, it's kind of remarkable that we made it to the end of the summer and we are a week out from having to be back in those halls. And I think I'm only going to go in for very little time. I am curious, Gary, if you're out there and you're still, I wonder if they stopped it. No, it's still typing. So, Gary, you going in early? Are you going in early? How soon do you need to be in the building? And I can see like it's kind of hilarious that Chids hasn't even been able to make it back in yet. That kind of sucks. That kind of sucks for him. I'm betting I'll get some sort of a text at some point, him saying, "Oh, now getting a lag." Hmm. You never really know what that is. We've experienced this before. Yeah, we've experienced this before. It's funny. I'll check my phone and see if. So we'll see if we're able to. This can have, this idea that the tech should be always at 100%. It's a it's a it's a novel idea. It's a novel idea, but it definitely is not. You're going in. I just got. Oh, Chiz is restarting. He's going the whole full thing. Yeah, you're going in this week. Yeah, I was sort of sitting there thinking to myself. So back on the topic of going in early, um, I'm really giving a deep scrutiny to, am I actually doing this for me? Do I like these patterns of going in early, these patterns of being on site early? Uh, how much of that is so in the on ramp? Chids and I were talking about this. You have to. We'll use Toronto. You're driving into Toronto. Then You're traveling somewhere, and you say to yourself, "Okay, we have to be there for X time. We're going to leave at this time of the day in order to get there for that time. Traveling during this time of the day, there's a lot of context there. So, normally it would take an hour, but you decide to go in the middle of the day. So going in the middle of the day, you say, I'm going to leave an hour early. And then you end up blowing through an hour of your own time, an extra hour of your own time that, you know, if you don't know what you could have used it for, so be it. I'm actually in that spot though, trying to decide what could I use that time for. So going in early, Chid's just sort of, I'm doing a monologue here about going into school early, right?
Got it.
Yeah, like for me to just as a matter of practice to go in this week and use up my time to get ready for school. Um, I actually last night, just before I was falling asleep, I said I think I only need 1 day at the school, and then I'm like, okay, if I'm in there for the 1 day, why am I in there for that 1 day? Like, what is and I would try to be as meticulous as possible, thinking about what I'm actually going to do in there and how long I'm going to be there. So Gary mentioned in the chat that he's going in this week. Um, kind of compared it to what you and I were talking about in the on ramp as far as having to get into the city and having to leave, like what the natural amount of time is to get there, and then having to leave like 2.5 hours early to get there for like that's such a messed up little bit of loss of personal time.
Um, I'm glad you guys could engage in that because I can jump right into this
Good.
idea about going to work. First of all, I laughed to myself a couple of times since Foodapalooza on Wednesday because I Gary and I drove together to Newmarket, and
Hmm.
Gary at one point asked me if I was. We were talking about going back to work,
Hmm.
and the gist of it was Gary asked me if I was excited to go back, and I was like, no. And I feel like at that moment in time, Gary had nothing to say because it was like, no, I'm not. I could even with this the lack of structure right now with my summer.
Hmm.
I'm good to stay home. Um, and I think it may have caught Gary off guard. At least that's the vibe I got. Yeah, I'm not like excited to go back to work. Uh,
Hmm.
in fact, I'm a little annoyed that
Oh.
that I have. Yeah, I'm a little annoyed that I have to wake up and go to work in a couple of weeks. I know it sounds, people are dying, right? Like, oh, you teachers, you're so this, you, yeah, whatever. Okay. I'm so whatever. I'm just, I'm being frank here for a minute. Um, yeah, I'm not excited to go back to work because
I
it gets in the way of my life.
I also know, just on that moment there, that itchy sweater conversation about being a teacher, being in education. I've kind of let go of this ball swinging anymore, where someone I know that there are people that think, well, let's put it, whether it's holiday or not, we are not at work by a rule. We are not back by law. That's what's kind of important. I've kind of embraced. We are not at work because of law, not because we choose to have summer off. We are not at work because of law. The laws tell us in the Education Act that summers are off. Summers are off, or can be off, right?
Hmm.
Depending on the type of school year you run. There's laws and rules that guide that. So that, all around that soft core is the all the opinions about what school should look like. And I remember I went through. I mean, I've I can no longer sort of soapbox and claim that I feel like I'm closer associated with my hospitality roots. Because at one point I used to say, I still find it kind of stunning that I'm not working for the 2 weeks in the summer, because I remember for 25 years working in kitchens and the restaurant business, there were no guaranteed days off. Like, I missed 25 years of events. Like, I couldn't make it to it. It's just the way the shifts worked. I could not clearly say, yeah, I'll take those 3 days off, and or I can do a food palooza on Wednesday. I couldn't do that. It was just the way the restaurant business did not allow for that type of freedom. So when people sort of like give me a little side eye about having the summers off, I agree with them. I'm like, yeah, it actually is kind of strange. And there's something about it for me that, you know, I'd be absolutely fine with a balanced school year. Like, if we did work through the summer, I think for my own mental wellness, it would probably be better for my routines to have, like, just to say, okay, they have these 8 weeks, we need to slice them up during the school year. Well, I got opinions. Give us 2 weeks off at March break. Give us 2 weeks off in November. So there's 4 of the weeks in the summer. Drop some extra time here and there. Do it, and let's just do all year round. I'm fine with that.
See, one of my kids said to me, I can go back now. Like, I'm done. There's nothing more for me this summer." And I said to him that my first response was bite your tongue, but my next response was that me feeling like, I guess it's privilege. It's a privilege that I don't have to wake up and go somewhere for a couple of months to get paid. Um,
Hmm.
and so for me, the signals from people about their routines and him saying, "I think I'm ready to go back. There's nothing much more for me to do." Those are all signs that, no matter what, I need to continue to kind of be, appreciative and just enjoy what I have. So I'm taking some of this negative and trying to spin it positively. I don't, like, I like my work, but work gets in the way of life. I know it sounds, I like my life of waking up and hanging out with my family and my pet and doing things that need to be done around the house. And it's like work gets in the way. But work is what allows me to have these things. And the funds are important. It's important to have money to do things, and because of work I get to do those things. So I don't know what to do with this. All I know is it was funny because I looked at Gary and I'm like, no, I'm not excited. I'm not looking forward. Work is going to interfere with my life. But having said that, I know that after about a week at work, that becomes life. And then it's like, okay, this is what I do every day. I wake up, I go to this place, I try to make good decisions and help people as best I can. Then I go home. And what's that? I do my other job. right? My dad husband job, my 5 to 9 job after my 9 to 5 job. So I just wanted to put that out there because um, I've done everything I can to soak up the time. Now, having said that, and I want to connect to what you were saying about um, people are going to get to see you and hear you and experience you in a different way this year
Hmm.
because because you're in Gen Pop. That was awesome. You're out of segregation, administrative segregation, and you're
Hmm.
into Gen Pop. One of my favorite university courses ever was my 4th year course on. Um, it was about prisons, the prison system. It was a law class, and basically the whole course was about the whole, also known technically as administrative segregation. So it was really
Hmm.
cool. Our professor had a PhD in psychology and a law degree. Can you imagine somebody doing that back to back? Like, so it was really cool because he could talk to us about the law and he could talk to us about the psychological effects because
Hmm.
he had done both. But anyway, um, Gen Pop. So, okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to. So I started at a new school last September in high school. And in high school, in any school, I've noticed that there's a way of operating. And when you go into a new school, you're generally at the bottom of you're at the bottom of everything. You get leftovers. You're not entitled to anything that anybody has, whether that's right or wrong. But I've put in some time. I've spoken to people about, where my desk location is and all that stuff, right? So I get there, I'm told this is your space. I go to that space. I didn't really like my space. And as time went on, I learned that there was another space that I would like to be in. So I talked to people, can I move into this space? And that was hilarious in and of itself because you talk to one person who you think can give you the authority to move into that space, but then they tell you, well, check in with this person because they're kind of responsible for that space. So I'm not going to tell you that you can have that space. So then I talk to the other person. They're like, yes, that's a great idea. You can move into that space. Having said all that, I ended up moving into a new space that I found was excellent for the kind of work I do, meeting with students individually, talking to them semi privately about their issues or whatnot, right? So I'm not in Gen Pop talking to a kid about a sensitive topic. I'm a little bit removed from Gen Pop to talk with this student or the students, right? I've got some friends, I know, hard to believe, that I talk to daily like I do with you. And it was funny because when I told them, hey, I'm going to go into work, I went into work the other night because my son had hockey near my school. So I went into school at night when it was empty, which was in and of itself was an experience. But when I told my friends, hey, I'm going to be going into work, they were like, I hope nobody moved your stuff. Like, I hope nobody walked into your space and was like, this is my space now. And just remove every shred of Roland and establish themselves, right? Because some teachers do that. Some teachers just walk into a room and say, I'm taking this room. This is my
Well,
space now.
at the Foodapalooza, Jamie was talking about that. He was talking about just the challenges of where people declare space when all it is social authority. And that was the two keywords that kept on popping up. Like, you want to go back to what you say, you sort of come as a new individual to the school and you assume that there's a pecking order. Like, you assume it. And the one half of that coin is, okay, I got to figure out how to navigate this. But there's also something kind of twisted that we also sometimes crave that because it makes us like new spaces. Mapping a new space is not just understanding where the stairwell is, where the coffee machine. There's social mores that we map as well. And I find time and time again, people are more comfortable with assuming that there's a pecking order as opposed to you arrive fully um, fully formed, and you get to just get rolling, right? That there's actually a deeper, maybe social democratic kind of system here, where if you do happen to go into a space and you see someone has left their lunchbox by the best window in the middle of the chair, that there's actually nothing wrong with picking up that lunchbox and putting it on the table and sitting on that chair. And I think that, I'm of the mindset of not empowering those um, complicated moments with anything other than the evidence in front of me. So I don't, sorry, I don't consistently give any power to that social authority. I told you when I went to Keswick, I came in the summer and I asked for the keys because I wanted to do some filming for the kids. Like, here's the front door, here's how we make it to the classroom, and I knew, like, if I need to film a school, it's way better to be there when there's nobody walking in the halls. Like, if that's what the actual content that I want to create. You don't have to bother with the extra conversations. Hey, are you okay if it's in the video? You don't have to do the complications of people getting in front of the camera. Like, you can, it's just way better, right? We know this way better. So that social authority factor, I'm starting to understand and accept that in order one of the tools that's necessary to navigate social authority and social order is just to call it out as bullshit and say, F it, I'm not going to follow this rule, and I'm going to see what happens.
So thankfully,
Now what you said, and yours is the okay, I'm going to mix up the okay, like your statement of okay, and my statement of now what.
right. So
Let's test this. Let's test the evidence that I shouldn't have, that this was actually a bad decision.
thankfully for just, I guess, the situation as it is, I had walked back into my space and my space was still, nobody had come in and taken over the space.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so I continued to set up. And as I was setting up, I was very aware of, um, there are things that I've brought into my space that are mine. Like they don't belong, the school doesn't own the stuff. They're mine. I've got my headset, my mic, uh, my dongle to make sure my headset works with the computer. Other things that the person who was in that room with me, he retired, and as he was leaving, he would say, "Hey, I've got this. I've used this for whatever. Do you want it now? Like, should I just pass it over to you, or should I put it in Gen Pop, or should I toss it?" So I got to benefit from the person who had spent 19 years in that space to say to me, "Hey, young Padawan, welcome to this space. Would you like this now? Do you think you could use this, or should I put it in the staff room, or should I just throw it away?" And so I was very aware as I was setting up my space in a more formal way to say, "Hey, somebody lives here again." Um, for someone to walk in and say, "I'm taking that over," I would be comfortable to say, "Hold on a second. I was in here for half a year with the person who lived in here full time. Um, he was leaving, and I had permission to be in this space, and I was told I could be in this space now, for sure, for real. You're not taking that. Who told you? Like, who says you can sit at that computer? There's one right there. There's an empty desk and computer right there. Well, I like that one. It's not going to work that way. Sorry. I was here first. I was here before you. Like, if we have to get into those conversations, then we will. It's like, look around. I've set up. I've claimed space. Now, unless the administrator comes in and says that person's taken over this space, then I would say, let's have a conversation. You can explain to me why that's happening. At the end of the day, though, they get to make those decisions. But I would argue, how would you have felt if I walked in and I said that to you? Like, let's do some role play here. Let's talk about this, because I'm a little bit more set in my way of operating in some ways. And some of them are, hey, let's have a conversation here. Who is that person? Why do they think they can just walk in and do that? How would you feel if I walked in and I did that? You'd be like, hey, what are you doing? So anyway, my space was still my space. And it is my space until the boss tells me it's not my space, which could happen.
I love this. I love this. This is so. This is so much of this. I would say is could be not remedied, but there's so much assumption built into this. And I will say, from my experience, for my experience in education, more problems, both functional, procedural, and social problems, have been created because, I'll say, teachers have anointed a space and basically put roots in that space and created this kind of aura like no one can have that space other than them. I have actually seen more problems. Now, I will say more problems mostly because the counterpoint, the discussion around who gets to sit where or who should be sitting where hasn't really been figured out well. So despite your comfort, and I appreciate your your perspective on this, I completely disagree with this idea that anyone is owed anyone is owed or can anoint a space as theirs. I start there. Um, I have a far more socialist kind of perspective on this, um, and I think that, again, people crave this. I do understand that social dynamic of, we want to know that even though there isn't a wall there, that we can build a wall, we can build a space, we can build a compartment within which I can exist. I can say, because it becomes an identity thing as much as a practical, this is how I get work done thing. I think by design, schools were designed with the idea of permanence and permission to be able to stay in one space forever. This is a inculcated mindset as well for teachers, many teachers, that staying at one school is staying there forever. Like, that's what stability, that's what's attractive. There's a stability and attraction factor there. I can be here, I can work my whole job there. And in a lot of industries, right, that doesn't exist anymore. This idea that you could stay for 30 years in the same job and still feel stable and healthy, like that factor, like, if we just peek outside the front window, that's not the reality that's going on outside our industry. There's many jobs now that have been completely condensed down to gig work, right? I know you got to bust out soon. So I just, on that factor, I fundamentally disagree that anyone should be able to stay in their space until the next school year. I think it has to be a formal negotiation, a conversation around who gets to stay where, even as far as office spaces go. I think there's a real, uh, I think there's a, a Bermuda Triangle there where it gets way too messy, and this idea that somehow that the fact that we would consider it singularly, for the most part, being upended and disrespected by being asked to give up our desk at the end of the school year to clean up our shit and take it home, right? Or to move it into some sort of formal storage for the summer. And then when we come back, we set the space back up again. I wish that I'd been able to experience that a little bit, like just what schools are doing well at saying, we will decide what offices you're going to be in next year. Last little bit, the brand new school. So the school that I started at, GW Williams, the brand new build, which opens up, they're probably in there next week. It opens up in September. There are no department offices. They did not build the school with department offices or like specific department offices. And you have to share your work desk with somebody else. So what that would mean is, my prep would align with your teaching period, and I would actually be working at at the desk. Both of us would be working at that desk. So there isn't just like the English office or just the math office anymore.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. My only pushback on what you're saying, I agree with you from a theoretical perspective, but I've also observed a year's worth of I've observed a year's worth of culture. So,
Mhm.
um, I I'm playing by the rules of the culture, whether it's right or wrong. And I'm not saying, like, when I walked back into the building, I honestly didn't know if the space that I had inhabited was now not mine anymore. So, and that was the joke with my friends. They're like, we wonder, did somebody else walk in and just say, this is where I'm squatting now? We didn't know, right? Um, and I was actually fully I would not have been surprised if I walked in and a couple of new people had taken over the space. And what I mean by that is, but then I would have went and talked to people. I would have said, "Look, when I asked you if I could move I followed the procedure, what I thought was appropriate to go talk to the boss and say, "Can I move into that space? It's open." And the boss said, "Go talk to this person and see if that's a thing." So when I did talk to that person, they said, "Yeah, you can go there. And then next year, you and so can double down and take over that space to do your work." So it was like, then I would be like, whoa, what's going on here? When I got here, I inquired, and this is what you told me was happening. Now there are people in there. Did, did, like, did I miss a notice or something? And if they didn't follow the procedure that I did, then I would like you to step in and to deal with that, because I'm just looking for some kind of order. Because if it's chaos, then what's stopping me from going to the English department's office, going in there and just squatting an open spot? That's going to cause all kinds of chaos. Nobody's going to like that. But then you're going to have to deal with the same thing that just happened to me that you don't want to deal with.
It's
Like,
like
so it's like, for me, it's what is the culture? And I'm going to do my best to follow it unless it's absolutely absurd and I can't. But I did. I earned my stripes, even though it was just 1 year. I feel I've followed procedure. I talked to right people. I now, but again, I wouldn't be completely surprised if I walked in and all my shit was in a corner and somebody else had set up shop and just moved all my stuff. But then I would have had an honest conversation with the powers that be and say, "Can you explain this to me? What am I missing? And where would you like me to go if I can't be there?" But who is this person that just walked in and just decided that that's where they were going to go if they just walked in? I don't understand. So somebody please help me understand.
us talking about the GPS on the on ramp and somehow the stress that's caused by the forecasted stress when we sort of get in there and our destination moves from 1 hour to an hour and a quarter to 2 hours, and you're looking at the visual display and you see the yellow line on top of your nice green line, and then you see the red line and you start to sort of like scroll on the screen. You're like, oh my god, the red line goes over and over and over again, and then you get into those two colored line modes and it's all clear, and it's actually not what's being projected onto the data. um, I think that this particular factor is a lot like that. I think it's a lot like that. Last year, when you were having very clear discussions around, I need to be able to meet with the kids and it can't be done, like the actual parameters of my job can't be done appropriately because of this. And you were talking about rooms and you were talking about timing, all that kind of stuff. I like that you finding a space now to be able to do that work makes sense. Like that makes sense. Where I fall off is this sort of like, what's the word, like colonialist kind of idea that because you put your flag in it, it's yours, right? I declare this land, Chidiac land, and boom. I know you're not saying that. I but I but it reminds me of how many others have.
And
And
will
you go in and
continue
you're
to.
like, yeah, you go in there and you're like, holy shit, how many boxes of old documents do you have off to the side there. And really, all those books you have on the shelf, like, are they really, do you really need those there anymore? Because that looks like a shelf that we could use for storage for something else. The whole idea of moving in, I think I have a problem with that language.
Ah,
We should never move in. That's what it is. We should never move in. Do we need to be there? Do we need space? Do we need storage? Yes. Should be functional, should be minimalist, and anything else that is not in need needs to be got rid of. You put it on your school Kijiji, you move it out of that spot. So
okay, bro. On
I
that
gotta
note,
go.
I gotta go. I gotta bust out.
Do
So
it. Get out of
th-
here.
thanks, Gary, for chiming in, commenting, hanging out with us, and for anybody else who listened or is currently listening,
Mhm.
Carlos. This might be this might end up in front of Carlos as he's doing report cards in October, November. So hey, Carlos, I hope the report cards are going well. Um, this was season 8, episode 40, number 347 of the Decoded Podcast. Have a good one.
Peace, man. Have a good day.